this is probably the final day, the last time that I'm going to speak in this current season to you. You've heard this statement so many times before, and it's been used as an example so many times too. And it's the example of how someone's last words are important. Now, I'm not dying, but they will be the last words that you hear from me as pastor. And I've been thinking of all the messages, of all the talks that I've given over the past 36 years, of all those one-to-one meetings that I've done. Which is the most important is the question I've been asking myself. What has been the most key parts of it all? What would I like to leave you with? And if I got to sum it all up, and I just wanted to get the main point across of 36 years, what would that main point be? Would it be from my time way back in my youth when I'd got a bit of an obsession with Keith Green, and I used to listen to his song Sheeps and Goats over and over again, which was based on Matthew 25, which is about who really is a follower of Jesus and who isn't a follower of Jesus. Or perhaps his famous quote that I keep on saying about what a real follower of Jesus is. It's somebody that's bananas for Jesus. Or perhaps it's when I nearly knocked Jason off his feet in the middle of the church. When God was impressing on me that I needed to stop skirting around the issues, that I needed to just face the mountain head on and just charge straight for it and say, get out of my way because I'm coming through. Or perhaps it was the time when I just put a tape across the floor of the church and invited people to just cross that tape with me and saying, who's going to sort of like cross over the line for Jesus with me? Or perhaps it was the time, perhaps that time that was the most significant event was when I got that cardboard box out of the back of the church and managed to get it to the front and stood in the cardboard box. When I felt God was saying, I'm much more than a cardboard box. I can fit, I don't fit in a cardboard box, what was what God was saying. So I crushed that cardboard box. Perhaps that was the most significant thing. Or could it be the time when I stood in front of the church and gathered my family around and held them close and quoted Joshua 24 and said, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Or perhaps it was just the many, many times when I led worship, when the week perhaps hadn't gone the way that it should have gone, when it was a difficult week, when it was a complex week. And I just felt I needed to be honest with you guys, and I felt like I needed to be honest with God. And I just worshipped. And I changed the songs, the lyrics to fit what had happened that week. Perhaps that was significant. Or maybe when I came in and I struggled and I sat at the back of the church and I lay there because I got chronic fatigue. And God so tenderly whispered those words, hey, Rob, you wouldn't even breathe if it wasn't for me. Perhaps that was the most significant message. And it's hard to pick one. And I'm crying now because there are all such significant moments, such difficult moments, yet so life-changing moments. How do you pick one? So many of them. But you know, actually, there is just one. And I think this sums it all up. And it shouldn't come as a surprise to you. You see, because if I can only choose one, if I can only get one thing across to you, just one thing, it's this. It's love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with everything that you are. And if you want a verse for that, it's found in Mark 12, verse 30. And it shouldn't be a surprise to you, should it? It's what I've tried to do all my life. It's what I've aimed to do, and it's what I will continue to do. It's the answer that Jesus gave to that question that's just a few verses earlier in Mark. What is the greatest commandment of them all, he was asked. So if you don't do anything else, if you feel you have no gifts, if you don't think you've got any abilities, if you don't think you're heard or seen, just do this one thing. Just do this one thing. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Why? Because it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. Set your eyes on him, pursue him, hold on and don't let go. And when life gets difficult and everything else becomes really, really hard, let go of that in preference to hanging on to him. Because it's simple, it's straightforward to do, it's easily attainable. Life can get just too complex. We try so much to define things. You know, we even try sometimes to draw a flowchart of how life should go. If this, then that. And humanity was born into such a great life for God, to live with him, the pinnacle of his creation, the ones whom he loved to hang out with. And it was such a simple command in Genesis 2:17. But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But we fluffed it, and we continue to fluff it now. And back then, Adam and Eve just wanted to discern what was right from wrong, what was good from evil. And today, trying to do the same thing just entraps us and brings us down. So just love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Because when we continually to eat from that forbidden fruit, life gets just too complicated. We form rituals, we get routines, we draw lines about who's in and who's out. We enter arguments that clearly we do not have the intelligence to partake in. The judgment we pass on others, we end up judging ourselves with. And then when we don't even come up to our own standards, the world drops to pieces around us. And it's no wonder, isn't it, that in Matthew 7, Jesus says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And the measure you use, it will be measured against you. Don't get into those arguments. Don't you get drawn into those battle lines. Remember, we're forbidden to eat from the fruit of that tree. That tree's fruit can only be eaten by God. So simply love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Then you won't be lost. You won't be afraid. You won't feel abandoned in this life. Remember, perfect love casts out all fear. 1 Corinthians 13 says this. If I speak in the tongues of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I'm nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It doesn't envy. It doesn't boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it'll pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, that's shalom. What is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So choose today love. Don't just have faith in God. Don't just have hope in him. Although they're great qualities and they should be eagerly desired. No, go for the greatest of those, which is love. And I'll say it again. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Because if you choose to love your God today, then that relationship will transcend mere faith. It'll provide more than a fleeting hope, and it will go well beyond feelings. It'll go beyond the need for answered prayer. It'll go beyond all forms of the supernatural. It'll satisfy all those cravings and all those hungers that's deep down in our souls. It'll shine into every hidden area. Those verses that I read out of Corinthians we use so often during marriages services, and yet it was meant as a rebuke to a wayward church. And who and what is the church? It's the bride of Christ. I did an MA to discover that. So that passage was to a bride who had become wayward. A bride that should have been passionate, that should have been a passionate lover of God. So go away today and reread that passage. But this time, apply it to your relationship with God. Apply it to your relationship to those that are your brothers and sisters within the church. And so it's finally come to an end. My last talk, my last sermon, my last word as pastor. So when all is said and done, when 36 years are condensed down, there's only one thing that you need to do and need to remember, and that's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your strength, with everything that you are. Amen.